So my name is Holly Dallenberg. I have a master's degree in entomology and an undergraduate degree in molecular biology. And so I had to learn all about insects. My research was on honeybee microbiome, so bug inside of a bug. And I did have to end up learning all of the bugs, all of the insects. And so I guess I was pregnant at the time, and I was very upset that I had to learn about cockroaches. So it's just, if you've ever been like irrationally pregnant. But it's turned out to serve me well because I think it is a value to be able to learn about all of the insects. And so that is something we're going to talk about. So what is an insect? The name gives it away. And so I guess I had titled this The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And the ugly part is what we're going to start with, and the ugly part are going to be the names. So that is maybe the hardest part about this, is having to learn all of the names. But I'm going to be talking about the insects with their order names, and that will make more sense here in a second. But I think the words are really important because the words are good descriptors of them. So what is an insect? So the word insecta means in sections, right? And so all insects have 3 sections. And so the 3 sections of the adults are all going to be head, thorax, and abdomen. So the head is where the pair of antennae, the eyes, and the mouth parts called mandibles are. The thorax is that middle section, and all adult insects have 3 sets of legs. So front, middle, back, so totals of 6 legs. And 2 pairs of wings. And so the Latin word for wing is terra. So if you've ever heard of a pterodactyl, that means winged hand. So terra is what wing is. And so all of these orders are going to have terra in the name because wings are really important to insects. And then the abdomen, that big part at the end, is where all the digestive and reproductive systems are. The thorax doesn't have much of that. It just has a tube that goes through from the mouth to the abdomen. And so the thorax is the muscles. It is just purely muscle that has muscles for the legs and muscles for the wings. So how I remember this, and I'm going to make you all remember this, how I remember it, is I'm going to make you stand up for a second. Everyone stand up. This is super fun. You're going to enjoy this, and this is how you're going to remember this, okay? So you're going to have to put this down so you can use your hands. So I'm going to go over this once, then I'll have you do it. So all insects have a head, thorax, abdomen, and then they have eyes, antennae, wings, and mandibles. Right? Okay, so we're going to do it together. Ready? Head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, eyes, antennae, and wings, and mandibles, head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen. There you go, good job, okay. Now you know the general anatomy of an insect, which I still catch myself if I'm trying to talk about a honeybee, I go, abdomen, it's in its abdomen. It's hard because people have abdomens right here, but this would be their thorax. So that's why it helps me to do that. So, so another really important thing, especially for gardeners, farmers, insect enthusiasts, is that there are 2 different metamorphosis types. So you all know what metamorphosis is, right? It's to change shape. So all insects change shape. And so there are 2 different ways they do that. And this is important, especially if you're using like a pesticide or trying to do an insect identification, is that you have a holometabolous. So back to our words, we have holo, which means complete, the whole cycle. And that has 4 stages. So think of like a butterfly would be holometabolous. You have the egg, the larva, which would be your caterpillar, a pupa, which would be your chrysalis, and an adult, the butterfly. And then you have the hemimetabolous. So hemi, meaning like half or incomplete, is in 3 stages. So you have the egg, the nymph, and the adult. And the nymph stage, it goes from being a little nymph to a bigger and a bigger and a bigger and bigger, and the adult is finally the one that has wings. So if you can't tell a nymph from an adult, the adult will have wings. And this is important because every time it molts to go from one nymph size to another nymph size, it has hormones that help this happen. So a lot of pesticides use this and target these hormones that help with this molting. And so if you prevent molting, they can't get to the adult stage. So knowing those two, so if you see something that is a caterpillar, then you know it's going to be holometabolous. And if you see like a tiny version of something and you're like, oh, I don't know what that could be, that would be hemimetabolous. So I have this picture here for you of an insect with what I described. So now you can sing the song to yourself. And then I wanted to talk about the different, we're going to be talking about orders, but example, for the European honeybee, they're eukaryota. So eukaryotes are multicellular, whereas prokaryotes would be our bacteria. So they're multicellular. They're in the kingdom Animalia. So they're animals. I get a lot of the times people are like, are insects really animals? And I'm like, yes, they are. They're in the phylum Arthropoda. The class would be Insecta, meaning insections. And their order is Hymenoptera. So you see the word ptera, meaning winged. A honeybee would be in the family Apidae, genus Apis, and species Apis mellifera. So mellifera meaning honey, so it's a honey Apis bee. So we're going to talk about different orders. So I have 12 of my favorite insect orders here for you. And if you notice, all of them, except for one, has ptera. So if you're trying to look at an insect and figure out what it is, it's really important that you look at their wings. And so this is the ugly part. You're gonna have to learn a bunch of Latin real quick. And so we're gonna go through these. So coleoptera. A coleoptera means shelled wings, and they're holometabolists. So this would be like beetles, ladybugs, and fireflies. So if you look at them, they have this hard shell on the back. That's called an elytra. And so those would be our beetle family. Dermaptera, derma, meaning skin, like a dermatologist, is skin-winged. So those would be our earwigs. So if you look at them, they have a pretty thick-looking wing. Dictoptera, which is a veined wing. The subtle differences, but it groups them into families. These are hemimetabolists, and that would be your cockroaches, termites, and mantises. So praying mantises and cockroach are in the exact same family. So if you're using an insect that targets one, you're going to target all of them, right? And so termites are actually just social cockroaches because they have queens, whereas cockroaches, they clump together, and that'd be called gregarious. So they're friendly, but they don't have a reproductive unit that serves as a queen in the way that a termite colony does. Diptera, so we talked about them all having 4 wings. Dipterans, they have 2 wings, and then they have these little nubs called halteres. So if you're looking at something and you're like, I can't tell if it's a bee or a fly, bees are going to have 4 wings, and flies are going to have 2 wings. 2 wings and then little nubs. And the way that when they land, because they have 4 wings, bees land like this and flies land like this. So when it lands, it has a triangle shape because it has room because those halteres are right there. So in the dipterans, you have flies and mosquitoes. So if you use some sort of insecticide for flies, it would target mosquitoes. Hemiptera, you're getting the word hemi, means half wing, and so these are our true bugs. Aphids, bedbugs, cicadas, if you look at them, they all have really short wings, and so they'd be considered soft-bodied because they have a lot of their body exposed. Hymenoptera, so that means membraned wing, so that would be our bees, wasps, and ants. So I learned recently that my son is allergic to bee stings, which means he's also allergic to ant bites or ant stings. Because they're in the same family, they have very similar chemical composition of their venom. Lepidoptera, lepid means scaled, so that would be our moths and our butterflies. Neuroptera, meaning nerved wings, those would be our lace wings. So if you've ever seen a green lace wing, you can look at their wings and they're really beautiful. They have these really pretty nerve-like structures on them. This one is not the wing, but it's Odonata. So Odonata would be our dragonflies and damselflies, and that's because they're called the toothed ones, because if you look at them, they have these really great big mandibles that have really defined teeth on them, and that's because they're really good predators. They're really good at catching things in the air, and then also their what would it be? Their nymphs would be really toothed. So have you ever seen those in the stream or anything? They've got big teeth. Orthoptera, straight wings, so you go to the orthodontist, you try to straighten your teeth. They have straight wings, so that would be grasshoppers, crickets, and leafhoppers. Phasmatoptera, I like this one because that means ghost wing. So they don't really have wings, so these would be our stick bugs. Thinking like they're little ghost, like little sticks. And Siphonoptera, so that would be our tube wings, which would be fleas. So there are more, but these are probably like the most important ones that you'll run into are these 12 different ones. If we back up from our order from order to class to phylum, we go back to Arthropoda. Arthropoda, poda, foot means foot, and so arthropoda means jointed foot. And so these are related, but they are not the same. So hexapoda, six-legged, we know that insects all have 6 legs. So we've talked about all of those. And then Chelicerata, those are arthropods, but they are not insects because they do not have 6 legs. Chelicerata means claw and horn. So in that family you have, phylum, you have horseshoe crabs, spiders, ticks, and scorpions. So spiders, ticks, and scorpions are all related, but they're not related to insects. Then you have crustacea, meaning shelled or crusted, which would be your shrimp, crabs, lobster, krill, barnacles, mantis shrimp, and our roly-polies. So shrimps is bugs. If you're eating a shrimp or crab or lobster, you are eating something in the arthropod family, which is very closely related to an insect. And then you have myriapoda. So I like that word, like multi and myria means countless. So that's where you have your millipedes and your centipedes. So this is the ugly part, which is how I am now going to talk to things by their order names, typically. So if I see something, I'm going to go, oh, there's some pillows over there with a Lepidoptera on it. Or there's a sunflower in Lepidoptera. Or there's a Hymenoptera over there. And so that is just, it helps you better understand them and make you take a second look, a deeper look, and maybe try to look at their wing if you don't know what they are. Because the goal is to know our insects, right? And why? Now we're getting to the good and the bad parts. And so objectively, nothing is good or bad. It just is. It's just trying to live its best life in the environment that it is, right? But subjectively, to us humans, we have these ideas of what is good and what is bad because they're good and bad to us. So good would be agricultural products. So like honeybees produce honey, right? You have those little, I forget what they're called, but they make the red food dye. Those are, red food dye is typically made with insects. So that is an interesting one. Pollination of crops and native plants is a good use of an insect to us, right? Pest control, so you can use one insect to kill another insect. Carbon cycling, so think about like the dung beetle who uses feces or things that break down wood. That's typically good. I guess if you think about termites as being carbon cyclers, maybe termites aren't as good, but if you have a lot of dead trees laying around, termites are actually really good. And then bird food. I think if nothing else, an insect is bird food, right? And then bad. So one thing that most people don't realize is pollination is not all good, right? Everyone's like, oh, save the pollinators. But what if they pollinate invasive species? That's not good. They're helping proliferate the invasive species that cost us a lot of money to deal with. And so if you're coming to the talk tomorrow, I've got a really interesting example of the Russian olive tree. So that is along the banks of the Colorado River, and it displaces natural trees and plant life along the Colorado River. It sucks up all the water, so it's contributing to drying up the Colorado River, which is bad for farmers, bad for people who need water on the west slope of the United States. And if you walk past it, which I did because I live in Colorado, and along the Colorado River, in the springtime, it is buzzing and it is covered with honeybees. So honeybees actually can be damaging to the environment. So if you're someone who's concerned about invasive species versus native plants, spoiler alert, honeybees aren't the best. Also plant agricultural pests. So the insects can damage agricultural crops in the field, but also inside your house. That's not the best. Disease vectors, so you got your mosquitoes transmitting a lot of diseases. Venomous, so like being allergic to bee stings, that's not great. And then personal pests. So things like cockroaches or ants in your house, it's not really the worst, but you might not like it. So I'm not here to judge what you want in your house, but people do not like some insects in their house. I name them. I'm just like, what's Frank doing over there? He's our cockroach guest. I don't know. Someone will eat him. So now you think about it in context of like good or bad. Things can be both, right? So honeybees are good because they produce honey, but they're also bad because they pollinate invasive species, right? So it depends. And so it depends on what your goals are as a farmer, as a land manager. So it's just something to consider. Things aren't just good or bad. And then, so IPM, Integrated Pest Management, is how we're gonna deal with it. So if you look at a circle, the top here we have inspection. So how do you know you have a pest problem? Well, you're gonna go out and inspect your plants and look at it. The second part is identification. So that's what we just talked about. You have to be able to identify, is that a bee on my flower or is that a fly on my flower, and why would that make a difference? And then continuing to look at that, monitoring action, which is what I will talk about, and then evaluation. So then you have to stay aware. You all have to be entomologists if you are going to be successful farmers. And then the triangle over here are action, which so a lot of you probably know this, but starting at the bottom, we have prevention, cultural sanitation, physical, mechanical, biological, and chemical. So I don't necessarily think like this, but I think it's helpful to have this information. The way that I think about how to manage or what actions I take with insects are gonna be these 4 bullet points. So I think of them as either you can push them away, you can hide from them, you can pull them closer, and if you do pull them closer, then you can kill them. So pushing them away, there are different plants. So marigolds are a pretty common one that we know of that emit a volatile chemical into the air. And then we have other things like mints, pines, basil, lavender, garlic, etc. And these all push them away because they release something that the bees, or not the bees, the pests don't like. And so those are good as like companion plants. I know a lot of people are doing these or becoming knowledgeable about the ways we can use plants to help us. They also can release chemicals into the soil. So I didn't know this, but marigolds will release a chemical pushing away nematodes. So that can be helpful for us. So really not just doing our insects, but our plant relatives and what their strengths are is important. And then, like I said, essential oils. So you got peppermint, citronella, lemongrass, lavender, tea tree. How they work is they push. Hide, so you could use netting around your plants or body. That's a pretty good one. So if you can hide, they either can't see you, they can't smell you, they can't touch you, so that's a good strategy. And then pulling them. So if you can push something away, you can pull it towards you. So think of like carrot and a stick type of methods. So pulling it, so how would you pull something close to you? How is it naturally being pulled to you? Well, it wants a food source. So you can attract things with a food source. So knowing them and what they eat, what their mouth parts are is really important. They can be attracted to flowers like certain pollinators can, or they can be attracted to leaves as a food source, or even attractive colors. So is that something that an entomologist may study, is setting up traps with different colors and seeing which one they're more attracted to. And then once you have them pulled close to you, then you can kill them. So different strategies for killing. So this maybe biological would be a habitat for insectivores. So that'd be like bats, birds, or other predator insects. Trapping, like I said, you could pull them with a color or maybe a mating pheromone. So that's a common one, is to produce a female mating pheromone. So then all the males get attracted to that. And so that prevents your mating population. Or insecticides. And so we are gonna look at the next page. And I looked up 12 of my favorite insecticides, or maybe some that are common, that are more likely to be used. I didn't go into some of the more like large scale agricultural ones, but this is a handy table. And when you're looking at an insecticide, a pesticide, an herbicide, this is kind of what you want to look for. So you look at the type. What is it? So what is it? Is it natural? Is it synthetic? what's the use of it? Why are you doing this? Does it target a specific insect, or does it go specifically for some sort of order? And then how does it work, right? And so this is all alphabetical, and we will just go over this quickly. I guess I'll pause. Does anyone have like a question on the insect orders? Good, bad, makes sense, right? Okay. So I hear a lot of people using Bt. So what is Bt? Bt is Bacillus thuringius, so it's a bacterium naturally found in soils. So that's pretty great. And it's used to kill larvae. So remember, if we're looking at does it kill egg, larvae, nymph, or adult? It's just going to kill just the larva because it eats the plant, and that's how that works. And it's specific to Holometabolus. So that's important. So you get different strains that are specific to Coleoptera, which are, pop quiz, what's Coleoptera? Beetles, yeah. So this would be something for, where would a beetle larva live, typically? Anyone dealt with them? Yeah, your soil. So that's why people don't like them, because they live in the soil and they eat roots. Whereas you have your dipteran. Where would a dipteran larva be? So mosquitoes, flies, water, typically, yeah. And then Lepidoptera. So where would a Lepidopteran larva be? What? A host plant, right? And so if we think about host plants, if you're spraying Bt just on everything, a lot of these actually would probably be host plants to beneficial lepidopterans, right? So when you're aiming for a lepidopteran, you might be going for a cabbage moth, but because they are in the same order, you're also going to be targeting your monarchs. So you got to be careful when something is specifically for a worm, right? Like what does that even mean? And how it works, I think, is, so if you just type like whatever pesticide and you do mode of action, that will tell you how it works and give you information if you're doing it right. So the Bt spores produce toxins at a pH of 9 to 10, which is really basic, which damages the gut of insect larvae. And the reason why it doesn't work in the human gut is because our pH of our gut is much lower. So it'd be acidic, so like a 3 or a 4. So that's why it would probably be a pretty safe choice. You have borax or boric acid or boron if you ever made slime. This is what it is. It's a cleaning agent. It's to kill crawling insect and used as a toxic bait. So something that they eat and then take back with them. So this is a general one. So if you're worried about bees, for example, or native bees, they wouldn't crawl through it, right? So like, not a problem. So how it works is it mechanically damages the exoskeleton, causing a desiccation and a stomach poison. So if you do put it in your beehive or on some place you want a beneficial insect to be, this is a general one, so it can kill both. So a lot of these are general, meaning that like going back to our good and bad, like you're just going to be, it's like taking an antibiotic. It's just like lighting a forest fire. It's not very selective. I did find that cinnamon oil worked by cinnamaldehyde, which is a repellent, kind of like our push strategy, and a biocide. So it kills through contact toxicity and a fumigate action. So if you have cinnamon oil, it can be a really strong smell that actually does kill them. Chili powder, capsaicin, repellent, and biocide general. How it works, it disrupts metabolism, causing membrane and causes severe nervous system dysfunction. So interesting how these work. You have DEET. So I use DEET. It's a bug spray, diethyltoluamide, and that's for biting insects. So you wouldn't really expect like a honeybee or a pollinator because they don't land on you to bite. But it's really interesting how DEET works, is that it interacts with the olfactory receptors, and mosquitoes actually have olfactory receptors on their feet. So when they land on you, they can smell it. And it actually binds to their olfactory receptors and makes it so then they can't smell you anymore. They can't find you. So it binds with, it makes it so they can't detect lactic acid and carbon dioxide. So knowing that mosquitoes are attracted to lactic acid and carbon dioxide may help someone who wants to build a better mosquito trap or something. I've heard of people using like CO2 emitters, and then that attracts them in. So, but this is kind of like your hide. So you can use a synthetic chemical to do one of these strategies, which would be to hide. Diatomaceous earth, fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organisms called diatoms made of silica. This again is your crawling insects. General mechanically damages the exoskeleton. So similar with the borax, so they have their hard exoskeleton, and so when you rough that up, then they emit water and they dry out. So pretty harmless to us. Imidacloprid, a neonicotinoid. Has anyone heard of neonicotinoids? Neonics. So these are actually really common, and they're used on a lot of farms where they're applied as a seed treatment. And so it's not great because it's not even responding to pest pressure. It's trying to prevent the pest pressure. But the way it works is that the seeds are treated and then they're planted. And so the plant absorbs the chemical through its vascular system. So when you have something that is a sap feeding and leaf chewing, it kills them because they're chewing on that toxic material, but it also travels all the way up through the plant to the nectar. So that is why neonics are a huge problem for pollinators, because they come to the plant. And so places like Lowe's, Home Depot, they're all treated with neonics because you couldn't have that many flowers in a room together without having some sort of plant pressure. You just made a buffet for all of these pests to come in, a buffet for pollinators too if everything's in bloom. But what happens with the neonic is that it is a neurotoxin that interferes with the insect's nervous system, specifically by disrupting the neotinic acetylcholine receptors. And so essentially that makes them drunk. It's like a neurotoxin. And so the bees come, they eat this poisonous or toxic sap or nectar, and they can't make it back home. So that is part of this colony collapse disorder, is that you have all these honeybees leaving, going to a toxic plant, and then not coming back home, and then the colony keeps having to send out more foragers. So, and I mean, humans also have acetylcholine receptors. And so, not great, not super great. We'd probably have to eat a lot of it or have like a really high dose, but I mean, we also have these receptors. Okay, so insecticidal soaps. So it's a potassium salt of fatty acids. It kills on contact. And this would be your soft-bodied insects like aphids. So it would not be good for something like a coleoptera that has a hard shell, right? So it would be good for soft-bodied like hemiptera, our true bugs, because they have half wings and leaves most of their soft body exposed. So it works by disrupting cell membranes, causing the cell to leak contents and result in desiccation. So similar to the other ones, if you can just kind of rough them up because they have these exoskeletons, but so the potassium salts of fatty acids actually gets into their cells instead of having it be like a disruption. And then it also, like if you spray an oil on any insect, so I didn't cover this, but does anyone know how a bug breathes? Did I mention lungs anywhere in this? I did not. So if you look at a caterpillar, they're probably the easiest one to look at. They've got these big holes all the way down their side. So these are called spiracles. And so that's how they breathe. It's passive oxygen diffusion into their bodies. And so that's why a long time ago, when we had a higher oxygen content on the planet, bugs were big because they could diffuse so much more of that oxygen into their bodies. And so if you spray them with an oil or cover the outside of their body, that suffocates them. Also, if you've ever been beekeeping and you've had a queen in your hand and you held on to her and you put your hands on her so she's like long ways like that, you'll make her faint. You'll make her pass out. So, oh, the queen has fainted. That's just because you're like cutting off her breathing mechanism. And so just good to know on how these things work. Same with our neem oil. You have an oil, so I don't know if I can pronounce this. Can anyone else pronounce this? Azadirachtin. I don't know. I looked it up a lot yesterday and I don't remember. Repellent and biocide. So again, we have our soft body and hemimetabolists, our true bugs. And this works by disrupting the insect hormone system, specifically the molting process. So again, talking about hemi versus holometabolists, if anything molts, it is going to be affected by neem oil. So if anything is a caterpillar, that doesn't have a molting stage. So neem oil would not affect something unless you're spraying directly on it to suffocate them, but the hormone would not affect a holometabolist because they don't molt, only affect the hemimetabolist. So that's why it's important to know. Permethrin and pyrethrin are actually really similar. So pyrethrin is a chrysanthemum derivative. So it's made from a plant, and then permethrin is a synthetic pyrethroid. And so again, both of these are pretty much the same. You can use them on the body. So if you're going camping, this is a good one to reach for. It's general, and the pyrethrin works by exciting the nervous system of insects that touch or eat it, causing loss of motor coordination and paralysis. So it's very similar to the neonics, where you have a neurotoxin, a nervous system disruptor. And that's similar. The permethrin is the same. It disrupts the sodium channels in the nerve membranes. So that's how it works. And then finally, termite traps. Again, they're termite specific because the termites eat them, and it inhibits the ability to molt. So that's going back to our hemimetabolus. And that's interesting because that's an insect growth regulator. So entomologists, I mean, I'm just validating being an entomologist, are really important because if you have any pest, it's good to know what the pest is, how it lives its life, and then how to disrupt that somehow, be it sodium ion channels or growth regulators or something that's specific to its lifestyle. So I have a pop quiz for everyone on the back, and I've got some honey as prizes. So each of these rows are going to be in order. So if someone can raise their hand and tell me who the insect is or what it's from and what order the row is from, I'll give you a jar of honey. Come on, the first one's easy, come on.
The order?
Yeah, what order? So if you're looking at your list of insecta orders, this top row, yeah, Matt.
Hymenoptera.
A Hymenoptera.
Optera is exactly what I said.
Perfect, yes. And then who's in our first one? Who's this guy? I think so. It's Cheerios. I don't know. Buzz, right? And then here. Yeah, yes. So you got Hymenoptera on the top one. Who's the second? What's the second one from? You don't know? You've never seen this movie? People always ask me if I've seen this movie. Okay, wait, we're still on this one. So this is from the Bee Movie. Yes.
Oh, you're plugging. Are you a paid advertisement? Right
No,
now?
I hate the Bee Movie. It is so inaccurate in so many ways. Like.
There's also rodents to the bee and
Well, there's so I could just do a whole thing of why. Well, okay, so the foragers, right? They've got these big beefy dudes. Yeah. It's actually old women. Oh, wow. It's only women, and it's the oldest of the women, and they're the most knowledgeable, the wisest. And so the movie should have a bunch of old women going foraging, not a bunch of dudes. Like the dudes, all they do is mate and die. That's a whole. It's a whole nother birds and the bees topic. Do what? Oh no, yeah, but it's a fun conversation. But I'll save that one for later. And then ants. This is the ants from Bug's Life. Okay, so these are all Hymenoptera. So now you can watch things and you'll be like, that's a Hymenoptera. Okay, what about the second row? Lepidoptera. So who's our first one? The caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. And the next two are both from.
I forgot his name. From Bug's Life.
Yeah, I don't know the Bug's Life. So now you can go back and watch Bug's Life, and you can be like, yes, that is a caterpillar, and it's going to be a butterfly because butterflies have caterpillars. Okay, and then the next row. What order are these? What was it? Coleoptera. Yep, so that would be, what's the first one? Do you recognize what movie that's from? You want some honey?
No.
You know what's honey?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
I know those are from a Bug's Life. That one, I do not know.
I think it's
Something about New Orleans.
yeah, Tiana, I think? Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, so firefly. So you see a firefly, know that it is a beetle. It has a hard shell on the outside. So we get fireflies, ladybugs. They're all beetles. They're all Coleoptera. I think it's Tiana.
Yeah, but it's from The Princess and the Frog?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the story. Yeah, I just remember the Disney name. Okay, and then the last order. What's the last order? Orthoptera. So who's our first guy?
This is Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket. And then our second one? Where's he from? Mulan? The lucky cricket? So next time you see a cricket in your house, know that it's lucky, right? And then the last one is that mean grasshopper from Bug's Life. So just know that their popular culture has a lot of insects, and they're really important. And I don't know why, but kids shows these days don't get it right at all. I don't know. Next time you're watching a kids movie, you can be like, that's not a butterfly. Like, that looks crazy. So I just want people to be more aware of insects. Okay, so how are we doing on time?
You're like right at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so when you go over there, I want you guys to look for insects and try to identify them by order. So thank you.
Well, welcome everybody. Again, my name is Brenda. I'm so glad you guys are here. This is my 4th year of flower farming. I started doing this after retiring from a paralegal career after 30 years. Knew that I wanted to be outside doing something, and so started flower farming, and it's evolved. It didn't immediately get to this size. But I'm loving every minute of it, being able to be outside doing what I love to do. So what we could do is just, if anybody wants to take a look around inside the hoop house real quick, and then we'll maybe step into the shade over here where it's a little cooler, and then I can go into some more discussion. But I can show you what's in here real quick. It was completely full in bloom until about a week ago, but with flower farming, when it's time to pull a crop, you have to pull the crop. You can't really wait for that. So we had larkspur and all sorts of stuff in here. But over here, I've got some feverfew, some orleia. I've got dahlias in the ground, both some that have already sprouted and some that are just beginning to sprout, that the tubers were planted. I've got some lysianthus back there, some celosia. We've got some campanula. That's this center row where you see the white. And this crop was full on a week ago, but it's all been harvested and gone out the door. So this is just the remnants of that. I haven't pulled it yet. We've got some sunflowers that have just sprouted in the last few days. Those will be a pro-cut sunflower, which is a one cut and done. And it'll be a plum color. That'll be really nice. More dahlias back there. We've got some mums. And then on this last row, we've got some sweet peas, some tweedia, which is used a lot in bridal work. And then we've got some dianthus back there, and then Dusty Miller on the far end. So I can talk a lot about crops, but if you want to, we'll go over here in the shade. How about that?
Seeds and replant?
I do some, not a lot, but I do some.
What they want? Is that what they do? Is that how
No.
you want to plant? Or do
No.
you just plant and say, I've got this, and they
Yes,
either want it or not?
yes, most of the time. Sometimes I get a request, but not, I usually, yeah.
Through the irrigation system now? Do you have some feed through the irrigation, fertilizer?
About once a week I try to do an injection, yeah. Okay, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the components of flower farming that people might not think about. The first would be crop planning, deciding what you're going to crop, what you're going to plant, what's the timing of that plant, when do the seeds need to be started, when do they need to go in the ground, when's that going to be harvested, can it be is it a cool season hardy annual that can take temperatures down to 0 that you would plant in September or October to get established for your spring crops? Or does that need to be a summer loving, heat loving, marigold, whatever? So there's a lot of planning involved. Where that crop's going to go, how much space you need for that to be there, all of those things that maybe some of you already are doing. But so there's the planning part of it. There is, bear with me here. whether to start my own seed or to buy plugs, and I do a little bit of both. I started out doing all seeds. I wasn't buying plugs at all. I'm learning that sometimes it's better to buy the plug from both a time standpoint for you and sometimes for the health of the plant. Sometimes your plugs have been grown under perfect conditions. They start out really strong, and there's less risk of failure than if you're starting seeds yourself. So I'm going to probably give myself a little bit of a break next year and buy a few more plugs than I did this year. So when I do start seed, I start it in my house under grow lights, you know, and I do soil blocking. I use air pruning trays, if you're familiar with those. Bootstrap Farmer has great ones. And I was telling the other group, I've started trying some seed snails. So if you've ever done any seed snails, those work really well. I don't know if have anybody done those? So easy, and you get great roots on them. So I can show you that later. So there's just the whole planting part of your seeds versus plugs. There's your soil health. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that today as you've been to the other farms, but we try to not use any as few pesticides as possible. We try to be really organic here. We try to do our own compost. Okay, sorry about that. So trying to keep, you know, the amendments going, try to be as regenerative as we can. That's why I'm using straw to mulch with this year, to try to work that back into the soil at the end of the season, just to kind of continue to build good soil here. Weed suppression is another part of it. Over here in this big field, you'll see a lot of fabric, because there's just no way I can manage weeds without that during the height of the summer. In the hoop, I had fabric down in my pathways and everything, and I recently pulled it up and switched it out with some wood chips, just because I feel like in the summer, even with the shade cloth on, the heat is pretty hot. So for me, working out there, I just was trying to doing anything I could to make it less, you know, hot and humid. Plus, I think I found that the moisture, the plastic was just, I feel like everything needed to breathe a little bit more. So I'm trying to do less plastics in the hoop. Out here, everything can evaporate faster. Your moisture can evaporate faster and everything. So there's that. Irrigation, we have everything on a drip system for the most part. And we have a well. We're really fortunate, so we don't have to use city water to irrigate all of this. So we have everything set up on timers. We're still kind of getting that set up for the season. It's not exactly the way it needs to be yet, but it will be in the next week or so. And so we just have different zones. Everything's in a different zone, and it goes off for however long it needs to go off. And the drip is underneath the fabric as well. I know there's different schools of thought on that, but I think if it's above the fabric, it just evaporates too fast, and the lines can blow all over the place. So I like it underneath the fabric.
How long have you been doing this?
So this is year 4 for me. It's the first year growing in a tunnel, so I've got some learning curve with that, but it's year 4, and so it's kind of evolved. When my first year, I didn't have this space, and so I realized after the first year that I needed a lot more space to have the scale that I wanted to be, and so we added that growing area, and so that's really been helpful.
How'd you convert that from grass to, did you cover it with some
We
rock?
did a mix of things. We had it, we tarped it, we did some silage tarps. We did a little bit of spraying because we just couldn't, it was Bermuda, you know, I don't need to say much more than that. We had it tilled, we tarped it again, so it was a process. But I do recommend, if you do start a plot, to tarp it first. I mean, I've seen people just put the fabric on a lawn and plant in it. It never works out very well. Or a field, you're gonna have Johnson grass coming up right next to your plants. So just try to prepare your soil, your plot as best you can. I think that's laying good groundwork and will pay off in the future. So we do have deer pressure out here too. We've got deer that like to roam. So we've used a variety of, I've used lights, like blinking lights that you can put on a T-post or whatever, and that kind of helps keep them away. They're just on they're like solar lights, and you can put them on little different blinking patterns. Yeah, there's actually a YouTube out there that was this retired OSU professor that did a program on that, and so you could look that up. But yeah, so fertilization is another thing, and I use a lot of organic. I try to use fish fertilizer. I grow comfrey, so I make comfrey tea, try to use that as well. And then we use just kind of a general, I think it's called Peters, that I'll use throughout the summer as well, just to give that extra nutrition that they need. The other thing that is a must for flower farming is your plant support. And so you'll see the plastic netting over there. If I didn't have that, they would be flopped all over the place. So it's kind of a necessary evil. It is plastic. I don't like using that much plastic in the field, but you just have to have it. So I try to reuse it every year as much as I can. Let me see, what else? Pardon me?
Your clouds, yeah, those cypress, the blue cypress.
Oh, I just bought these the other day. They're insect repellents, and you put them on your clothing. It's my first day so far. Yeah, mosquitoes love me. They love me. So far, I haven't even. Now we got a good breeze today too, so.
Is your blood O positive? They say that if you're O positive, they love you more.
Yeah, I know. So the other thing, one thing I want to talk about is post-harvest care. When I first started doing this, like, you just couldn't keep it all. You've got at least 30 plus different flowers, and each one maybe has to be cut at a different stage. Some of them you want to cut when your bloom is just starting to unfurl. Some of them, that's too early to cut. You wait until they're fully open. So learning the different requirements for each different crop that I'm growing has been, a good learning curve. It's kept me active learning. And so I do refer quite a bit. There's a book called the Post-Harvest Care, and so that kind of tells you the stage of when to cut the flower. Does it like the cooler? I've got a CoolBot or a cooler in our house in one of my bedrooms. You take a regular air conditioner unit, and it has this CoolBot device that you may be familiar with it. So as soon as the flowers are cut here, they go into the cooler until they get delivered to the customer. And so conditioning the flowers, that's all part of the whole process, right? Let's see what else. So yeah, there are several books that I recommend if anybody has an interest in cut flower farming or cut flower gardening. Lisa Mason Ziegler is a good one to listen to. She has great podcasts. Jenny Love is another one, Love and Fresh Flowers. That's a great resource as well. OSU is always a great resource. Then the Seattle Flower Market just came out with a book last year that it goes into great detail on literally from how many bunches, a bunch is 10 stems, how many bunches you want in a bucket, all the information. So one thing, I didn't talk about this earlier, but I think it's interesting that cut flower production, 20% is domestically grown, 80% is imported from other countries, 80%. And so there is a need for local flowers. And so I encourage everybody to support local flowers, find your nearest farmer's market, or you know, with social media now, it's not hard to find somebody near you when you need a bouquet. Find a local grower as opposed to grabbing that bunch from Sam's or Costco or wherever it is.
What's the shortest growth cycle for a flower? Do you have
Sunflowers, probably 40 days.
40?
About 40 days. Lysianthus, that's, if you look over there, the 1, 2, 3, row 2, 3, and 4 are Lysianthus. They take nearly 6 months to grow from seed. I buy plugs. I do not, they're really very time consuming to get them from a seed to a seedling that can go in the ground. So I buy plugs for those, but they will not bloom until July. So it's about 120 days, yeah, for those. Zinnias, 45 days mainly, probably.
Have you delved into cut your own, or is this all wholesale?
I primarily do wholesale. I do have periodically a DIY bride bucket type of situation, but for me, from just my schedule, I prefer wholesale to florists. I have a customer base. I put out an inventory availability each week, and they let me know what they want, and I deliver twice a week. So, and they come to the farm and pick up as well. So yeah, and it's so fun for me to know that that seedling that I started or that I grew went into a wedding, or it was for a funeral. I mean, there's just a real great satisfaction for me to provide a product that brings joy or comforts, or you know.
So if you knew now what it takes to do this, would you shorten your paralegal career?
No, because I had to have that to be able to do this. So this is not my it's my full-time gig, but it's not my full-time income. So for me, this is the way it worked well. So, and retiring, I'm one of the few, I think, around here that does this full-time. A lot of flower farmers that I know are still working full-time jobs. It's really hard. It's really hard. A typical day for me, in the summertime specifically, starts as soon as the sun is up. You don't harvest during the middle of the day. Most of the flowers you need to harvest early morning or early evening into late night, So I'll work from sunup till 10:30, till it gets too hot. Yeah. And they cut, they go in the cooler, you do other stuff during the day, you come back out at 6, you cut till 8, start all over the next day.
Do you sell everything? I mean, is it
Pretty
all
much,
good?
yes. And last year was the first year I felt like I had a lot of unsold stems. That gets better with experience and with a growing customer base. So the goal would be to not leave any stem.
So is it per flower head? Is that how it works? Is how you sell it?
Per stem mainly, or a bunch. Most florists go by a bunch, which is 10 stems.
Okay.
Some things are sold in bunches of 5 stems, but primarily everything is 10 stems.
Now, so whenever you say you pull them, you pull the whole stalk, and what do you do with them?
Like, so the sunflowers that I just planted, those are a 1 cut and done. So you cut it.
Do you compost them, or do you burn them, or?
Well, hopefully every stem is going to sell, and then what doesn't, new seeds will go in right after that's done. So stalk was another one. I had that this spring. Cut it and you're done. Cut it and either pull it and get another crop back in there. It's hard to pull things when they're still blooming, because you have the tendency to say, oh, I'll just save that for this customer. But in reality, you need to cut it. You need to cut your losses and move on to the next thing, because that's lost productivity, that's lost sales when you do that, lost space. So that's part of kind of learning.
Crop rotating or flower rotating in terms of the type, or?
Yeah, I've tried to rotate where things are, but primarily what's out here is heat-loving flowers, and then what I have in the hoop are things that are, more towards going into fall. So my mums won't bloom until early September, maybe early October. Dahlias, some of those won't start blooming till August, and hopefully will go into the fall. So it's kind of planning what's going to bloom now, what's going to bloom in a month, what's going to take me through the end of the season.
Are they all annuals, or you got much perennial?
This bed over here, I'm trying to establish fully perennial. These are all annuals, except for this section right here has some what we call woodies. I don't know how to get that going. Woodies, which are basically woody shrubs. And so those, you want to get them established before you start cutting on them. So I won't cut on those for maybe another 1.5 to 2 years. Okay. Same with peonies. I've got some peonies that I planted this last fall. Yeah, I think it was fall. I won't cut on them for maybe another 2 years. So you want all that energy to go back into the root system, and so that those are strong plants.
What do you think is your most popular flower?
Lisianthus is popular.
Right.
Yeah.
The ones that take the longest.
Yes, and they bring a good price. Right. So you try also to think what's going to be the best bang for the buck. Mm-hmm. When you're putting the time in, you want to get the most you can for it, and so try to focus on the top producers. I love celosia too. It's just an easy, and you get variety. They're not always the same as far as shape and color, and so those are the two probably that I enjoy the most. Zinnias are a great money maker as far as they don't cost very much to produce. You can sell every stem, but yeah. So.
What about so you're rotating things out when they're done, like sunflowers, there's such a short span. How many sections of sunflowers do you think you could get in a year? You want to start them once. I should be starting sunflowers now, every week almost, if you've got the space. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing I was telling my husband the other day, I've got to be thinking about cool season hardy annuals again. We just got finished with that, but those really need to go in the ground in October to get a good root system on them so that you have them to start blooming in the spring. If I'm full of dahlias and mums, I haven't given myself enough room to get those cool season hardy annuals in there. So that's where the crop planting comes in, and there's a learning curve to that, and I'm still learning. Is it all by hand? You got an app or something that you...
I used to be really organized when I was working full time. It's harder now. I don't know. It's on paper. It's paper. I was on a computer for so many years that now I don't really want to be on a computer. So.
Is it just you and your husband?
Yes, I do have one girl that helps me maybe once a week. Yeah, for a few hours. He's the tractor driver, and the greenhouse. I will say the hoop house is, we just put this up, he put this up this summer fully by himself pretty much. This is an NRCS grant hoop house, and the kit came from Focus Farms in Edmond. It was a great company to work with, and we've really loved it, and I'm really ready for a second one.
Deal with insects.
It looked like it held up.
Yes. So the question was, how do I deal with insects? So a good example would be, we're getting ready to see Japanese beetles. They love marigolds and they love zinnias. And so every morning I go out with a cup of soapy water and I just do patrol. When the dahlias start blooming, I put organza bags over them, just like a 6x9 organza bag. You order them off Amazon or wherever. And so almost every dahlia bloom will be bagged so that they're literally just perfect for weddings and everything else they're in. So yeah, sometimes I've had to spray spinosad. I've sprayed, I try to stick as organic as I can, but it kind of varies by crop. So, yeah.
You have some beautiful flowers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you. What other questions have we got? Is anybody doing any flower production or any backyard type flower?
Dandelions in the front yard.
Well, can do a lot with those. So native perennials.
Line my along the sidewalk with just like
Okay.
native ones that I don't have to pick
Yeah.
for.
I know. Well, and I actually do have some natives that I think some of the other growers don't, which has been, fun to kind of have a little bit of a niche with that. Penstemon is a good example of that, just like your white Oklahoma penstemon. It's beautiful, and it does fabulous as a cut flower. So I've got quite a bit of that over there, and I've expanded on that. And I think the more perennials you can have, the better.
Yeah.
So.
We grow quite a mix as well as a bed set aside because staff like to come and cut flowers or put one on the reception desk, or
Yes.
when our clients come in and have lunch, have flowers on the table.
Yeah. Well, it's been a huge learning curve. I think that's one of the things I've loved about this is just having to learn learning something new every day, and it changes so much. So I didn't realize in my quote retirement that I would be doing this, but I'm loving it and plan to continue on as long as I can. So, yeah.
Well, retirement releases you to do what makes your heart sing.
That's right. Yeah. And it does. I'm happiest when I'm out here cutting flowers. I may be sweating like, crazy.
That's good though.
But it is good. Yeah. And my husband's so supportive. I couldn't do any of this by myself. I feel like you do have to have, helps to have a little muscle behind some of the things that I need help with. So, yeah.